Okay, so first thing I wanted to show is Microsoft Fabric. So again, if you're not on the technical side, don't worry. I don't want to, burden you with too much information here, but this is Microsoft Fabric. In here, I've created several different workspaces, and I'm just going to click on one that I created called Finance Fabric. And within here, I'm going to click on what I created, which is a lake house. And now this is has all of the files that come from the syncing that happens between D365 Finance. Again, this could be anything. This could come from any data source. It just happens that I synced up with Finance, but we can load data from any source. We can use the connectors that Microsoft has available. We can connect to SQL database. We can connect to pretty much anything and store all of that data right here, and then use the solver connector to access that information. So what I have in here in this lakehouse, I've set up these tables, but what I want to do is I'm going to switch to this one called SQL Analytics Endpoint. And within the SQL Analytics Endpoint, the really cool thing here is then we can stage the data. So what I've done is just an example here is I have a couple of tables. If I click on one of these tables like main account, it's going to just query the data. Now this is coming from Finance, and this is the main account table sitting inside Finance, and this is synced up. So it's going to refresh all the time. And this is just a table. So if you're familiar with a database, this is a database table essentially. But now what I can do inside SQL Analytics is I can also create views on that data. So I created a simple view that just distills it down, gets rid of all the columns, just to the main account and the name. So I've sort of staged this data, if you will. Now, a really cool thing using this environment is if I have data coming from other systems and I want to mash that data together, I certainly can do it in this environment. I can create those views, and then I can go to Solver and ingest the data that I prepared here inside Fabric. So this is just a quick glimpse of what it looks like. I'm not going to get into all the details or the technical components of this, but what I want to do now is I want to connect to this environment from within Solver. So first step is we're going to come into Solver. We're going to go to the data warehouse, and we'll go to integrations, and we'll create a new integration. Now in the marketplace, we are going to have a new integration that we just put to general availability last Friday called Microsoft Fabric. We have one other in here, which is the Solver to Solver, but for today, we're going to talk about Microsoft Fabric. Solver to Solver is also brand new. So we'll click Create, just like you would normally do, and we have a few options here. Now, this is always going to require Microsoft Entra ID, so that's just how you authenticate. Then we need to get this server service name and then a database name. And to do that, we're going to go back over to Fabric. And the first thing is we see that this is just called Finance 2025. That's the name of the database. But first, what I want to do is I want to capture the actual endpoint. So the endpoint is right here. It just says SQL endpoint. I'm just going to copy that endpoint, and I'm going to paste it into that address. And then I'm going to come back here, and I see this is the name because I created that name. I just called it Finance 2025. And we'll paste that one in here. We don't need to get into any advanced options. We're fine with that. And then we'll click Login, and that's going to prompt me to log in. I already have created logged into Microsoft, so you don't see that. It just popped up very briefly right there. But now I can create new tasks. And the first thing that I want to do is I'm just going to call this account. And for those who have used our integration engine before, this is going to be pretty familiar with you. Now, I created a view. If you recall, it was called Solver Account. If I just come back over to Fabric and look inside Fabric, we'll see here under Views, I have this one called Solver Account. So I can connect to that Solver account. And this is a dimension, and it's actually the account dimension. And I'll click Continue. And then you can see the two there. Of course, we can preview it if we just want to take a quick glimpse of what that looks like, but we know what it looks like because we just looked at it. So we're just going to drag those two fields over. Again, this is where you can do all your cool, fun stuff. You know, if you want to do some manipulation or add fields, all the things you can do inside our integration mapping page. We can preview the data, but of course, it's going to look exactly the same as the other side does because we kind of removed all the other fields. We just created that special view. And then we can click continue and save it and continue again. I'm just going to do this one right now. I'm just getting to the end, and we'll just call this the Microsoft Fabric integration, and we want to publish that, all published. So now we've published our integration, and we have this one right here, and then we can run it, and that will just process. So now what it's going to do, it's going to reach out to the Fabric environment and capture that data and pull it into Solver. So if we come now to the overview page and look at account, of course, we will see now that we have the accounts in Solver, and those were coming from this view that we generated based on the table. Again, we can do that with all of the data, and you can go through and set up your integration. This does require a level of technical know-how when you're using Fabric. It's really not something for a light or basic user. There's things in there that are quite simple to do, but for the most part, this is a place for someone with experience using Fabric. But once the data is in there, as you saw on the Solver side, there's really nothing technical in here. You just need to understand how to use Solver and the fields that you want. Of course, understanding which fields, the dimensions, the modules, and the attributes that you want to pull in to Solver is the critical part of the project, if you will. But you don't really need to know anything technical in order to use the connector. So that is the Fabric connector in a nutshell.